students, this side Bindu Chaudhary welcomes you in your social science class. Today in our social science class we are covering our chapter 7th of unit 4th. The name of the unit is Social Justice and the Marginalized. We had covered our 6th chapter, and in this 7th chapter we covered about the understanding marginalization. What is this marginalization? We will discuss this one. What's the need of this one? What's the need of discussing the chapter here? We will discuss this also. So today we are starting our part first of introduction, and when we are taking introduction, then it's a simple example to all of us. See, when we are taking introduction, what do you understand by the term? Term, it means marginalized. Marginalized of who? Whom are marginalized and how they are marginalized. See, this one is the example. This one is the pic. इस pic से आप क्या समझते हैं? What do you recognize by this pic, students? Yes, when you are recognizing, see, something different get up and something different, it means tribes peoples are here. I am giving one more example to you. See, you have 10 pencils and 1 pen with you. Then among these 11 items, who is marginalized? Which item is marginalized? Pen or pencil? We have 10 pencils, then only 1 pen. 1 pen is marginalized. And we have another one example more. When in a class, in the last corners or in a game, everything is here, and when we search out that the corners are the marginalized. Why? Because every moment the marginalized moved on from their place, not the inner circle peoples. Inner circle peoples attach their one at the same point, but the marginalized peoples switched off their changes. That's the main important why all these things we are considering here. How the people who are marginalized here and how they are marginalized. Many points are there for this one. See, marginalization is due to language base. When you have 20 students in your class, and among these 20 students, 3 of them are from the different language, it means Tamilians are there or maybe Punjabis are there, and you don't know about all these things, you know English or Hindi, then who are marginalized in between these 20 students? The 3 among them. So on the basis of language we will marginalized, on the basis of the customs we will marginalized, on the basis of the religion, on the basis of religion as well as economic and social status are the main things from whom we marginalize any person, or we categorize the person on the basis of all these points. So this concept is clear in your mind that how a person is marginalized and who is marginalized among all the things or among all the peoples, among all the students in the class. Yes, when we are characterizing all these things, then this is the main point we are going to cover up here. Literally, when we are pursuing our chapter, student, then this is the main thing what we are reading. So what we are going to study in this chapter, we will consider these points here. First one, we are considering frictional case to understand marginalization. We will take an example of a story here. Next one is, who are Adivasis? Yes, lot of discussions in our history portion also about Adivasis, lot of discussions in geography portion also. How geography? Yes, industrialization is there and forest expansion is there, water reserve parks and forest parks are there, reserved parks are there. So we will discuss who are Adivasis. It's okay. History and geography you had discussed in and in English also, in the senior classes also, you will take a whole chapter about Adivasis. When we are discussing our next point here, Adivasis and stereotyping, how this one comes, we will discuss here. Next, 4th point considering here is minorities and marginalization. When we are discussing about 10 pencils and 1 pen, who and which item is minor there? Pen is in the minor position. And when we are discussing about the 20 students, and in 20 among 3 are them of which caste or which religion. Maybe they are on the language based discussion when they are belongs to the Tamilian or Punjabi. Then on the basis of that one, these 3 are the minorities. So we will discuss minorities and marginalization also. When we are discussing about the Muslims and marginalization, this one is also in our part, and in the final, the end of the chapter, we will conclude and sum up all the things here. So this one is the main points we will consider in our chapter reading session. When we are taking this one, our first point starts from here. Fictional case to understand marginalization. Yes, we are taking a story here. See, Dadu's story is similar to the lives of the millions of Adivasis in India. First we will consider the story, then we will sum up this one. See, this one is the picture, and in this picture in the TV, these peoples on the day of what celebration? See, Adivasis and marginalization. An Adivasi family in Delhi, Soma and Helen, are watching the Republic Day. What they are watching, students? They are watching the Republic Day parade on TV with their grandfather. See the important role of grandfather in this story, Dadu's story. See, oh, see an Adivasi float here. This one is the picture, and Dadu, why do they always show Adivasis as only dancing? This is the main query from Soma and Helen to their Dadu, that why only and only the Adivasis picture shows only dancing? Because this is their culture. So this is the picture. See, the lives of Adivasis are very rich. Most people don't know about it. Yes, don't they know anything else about us? It's again a query from the children to Dadu, that it's okay, we are considering them on TV, we are watching them on TV, but they don't know anything else about us. Yes, at present we are living in Delhi. We are considering about the story of Soma, Helen and Dadu here. So what's happened? See, suddenly we were told that the forest, this one is story told by Dadu to the children. See, when I was young, our village in Odisha, Dadu here is telling his own story, and in this story Dadu told that when I was young, our village in Odisha was beautiful, very beautiful. We got everything we needed from the land and forest around us. We in turn respected the land, the forest, the river. So this one is the story how Dadu expressed this, that we respect the land, the forest, the river. It means every natural thing these are respecting. And how all these things comes? Because in Odisha all these peoples were living there. And see again what he is discussing. Suddenly we were told that the forest was not ours. You recognize and you remember the history portion in which British rulers imposed new forest law, and in that forest law, students, what's happened? Yes, the forest in which the tribal peoples lived are not more of them. Same here, they were told that the forest was not our. Forest officials and contractors cut down large parts of it. If we protested, they beat us. See the condition of the Adivasis. If they protected by the forest officials and the contractors to cut down, not to cut down large parts, then they beat us and then took us to the court also, where we did not have our lawyers and could not fight our cases, because on that time these people had not that much of awareness, students. And when we are considering this one, then these people don't know the rules and regulations, because every people, forest officials as well as contractors, started beating them and they took them to their courts. And what's the important? Dadu and others did not know that lawyers help them and they fight their cases or not. So the possibilities totally on that time in Odisha with Dadu was not in a favorable conditions because they were Adivasis, and whatever may be the conditions is discussing here we are. See, then how did you survive, Dadu? It's again a query by the children, Soma, Helen. They see the conditions here. Many of us were forced to leave our homes and find seasonal work in nearby towns. Remember the chapter of history here, when these tribal peoples, when we are discussing about history, these tribal peoples switched off from the forest to in search of their livelihood, in search of the employment, and that's here Dadu specify that find seasonal work in nearby town, we switched off from there. Same here, then the company walas come. Company walas, it means British rulers and the contractors of them. They said there was iron. See, one thing more, when we are considering about the geographic portion, students, we consider their industrialization, growth of industrialization, and in that one we discussed about the situations, how Tata Group switched off the peoples from there in the development of the industries. Same here, then the company walas came, they said there was iron ore under our land, they wanted to mine it. They promised jobs and money if we sold our land to them. So what's the condition company walas put on the Adivasis? They promised that one job and money will be there if they sold their houses or land to the companies. So some villagers were so much excited, others sad. This would destroy our lives. What happens, students, if at a night you are at home and in the morning someone tells you that this one is not to your home, so take this money and quick from here. So what's the condition here? Same situation with these Adivasis people on that time with the Dadu. Dadu is telling his story. Other said this would destroy our lives and we would get nothing from this one. Some gave thumbprints also, because in the excitement many people started to give thumbprints, not realizing they were selling their lands off. Yes, it's a position when they switched off from their lands only and only on the conditions of job, some money and other things. Only a few were given token jobs there, but most of us did not sell. Only few people got a job there, but most of the people at that time didn't sell their land. So what's happened, students? This one is the story of Dadu who told to their children. And what's the situation behind it? We realize the moment, we realize the situation of Dadu, how he switched off from his own land. And what's the important here? When we are discussing again and again about Adivasis, then who are Adivasis? Then in the answer we will tell that original inhabitants of that particular region are called the Adivasis, or we will say communities who lived and often continue to live in close association with forest. The important thing, close association with forest. So Adivasis not belong from the cities. It's okay, you will tell, ma'am, trees are there in our class, but only this time, not before. At present also many Adivasis lived in the forest. So when we are considering about the Adivasis, then the example of Odisha, the example of Dakshin Africa, and so more we have. So the Adivasis are those who had a close association with forest. A state like Odisha, when we are discussing about the story of Dadu, here is also the state like Odisha is home to more than 60 different tribal groups. It means more than 60 different tribal groups are living in Odisha at present also. So Adivasi societies are also most distinctive because there is often very little hierarchy with them. So at present when we are discussing about the Adivasis, this one is the situation that almost distinctive position is there. Around 8% of India's population is Adivasi. What's the present condition, student? At present around 8% of the India's population is Adivasi, and many of India's most important mining and industrial centers are located in Adivasi areas. Yes, the story of Dadu. Yes, the story in geography. Yes, the story in history when we discussed about the new forest laws imposed by the British rulers and the contractors. When we discussed about the industrialization also, in that also we discussed about the different industrial centers located in the Adivasi areas, Jamshedpur, Raurkela, Bokaro and Bhilai, among others also in this one. So when we are discussing about the areas, the territories of the Adivasis, so this one is important, that all the minings, all the industrial places, centers are located only and only in the Adivasis areas. It's okay, they sold their land and in place of that one they got some money or some job, etc. But not every people got their job. Not every Adivasi got their jobs. Adivasi practice a range of tribal religions that are different from Islam, Hinduism and Christianity. When we are considering about the religions, then tribal religion is totally different. Yes, we had lot of discussion about Islam, a lot of discussion about Hinduism and Christianity also, but not the discussion of the tribal religion. But we have our important religion of tribal peoples. These often involves the worship of ancestors, village and nature spirits. So when we are considering about the tribal religion, tribal peoples always worship to their ancestors, to the village and to the nature spirit, as we had discussed about the story of Dadu. In Dadu's story also we had discussed that Dadu and others respects the rivers, the nature, the forest, everything they respect, and that's the main reason tribal peoples lives in forest. This one is our next topic. We had discussed about Adivasis, and when we discussed about Adivasis, so Adivasis and stereotyping is another the main topic here we will discuss. In India, we usually showcase Adivasi communities in particular ways. When the example of Republic Day we have discussed, so this one is also the showcase when we represent Adivasi communities in a particular, in a special way, whether of dancing, whether of wearing different and totally different clothings and ornaments. When we are discussing about the stereotypical ways, see here, first point we are considering here is the primitive. When we are discussing about the primitive, students, see the get-up of these girls totally different from the others. They had some ornaments in there, they had some tattoos also, and when we are discussing about the costumes, the main thing, they always wear costumes, colorful costumes. Why? Because they love the nature and nature gives us color. So they always wear colorful costumes. The one more important point here, blame them for lack of advancement. Yes, we the modern people always blame that these Adivasis had a lack of advancement. They don't want to be advanced or they not willingly want to be advanced? This one is again a question here. Most of the Adivasis people, they lived in forest and they are freely, happily living in there. So, no lack of advancement because their own traditions, their own customs, their own culture have their own important treasury for them. When we are discussing about stereotyping here, stereotyping particular communities can lead to people discriminating against such groups. Yes, this is the important fact. Literally, when we are speaking about the discrimination here, then this is the situation that particular communities can lead to people who discriminate against these such groups. Yes, the example of 10 pencils and 1 pen. The example of 3 Tamil students in a class among the English and Hindi speaking students. So, there is a stereotyping, there is a minorities position in this one. Adivasis communities in particular ways have particular things. When we are discussing about the situation of school students, see here, thus during school functions or other official events or in books or movies, when we are considering the position of Adivasis, Adivasis are invariably portrayed in very stereotypical ways, such as colorful costumes, such as headgears. See some ornaments here in their head, and through their dancing positions also we stereotyped these Adivasis among all of us. And especially when we are considering about the official functions, school functions, annual functions, we notice that one of the dance of Adivasis is also among all of them, among all the dances in them, and this one attracts all the people because of the colorful dress, because of the different ornaments weared by the school students in the position of the Adivasis costumes. Besides this, we seem to know very little about the realities of their lives. It's okay, we are considering them in our lives also, but what's the reality, students? Literally, when we are speaking about the reality of the lives of the Adivasis, then we seems to know very little about them. This often wrongly leads to people believing that they are exotic, primitive and backward. That's why we had taken that table, because many people had a concept, that they had a pre-mind concept that the Adivasis are very exotic, are very primitive and are very backward, but actually they are not. We had only the conception in our minds here. So, when we are considering about them that they are backward, then what's the development of Adivasis here? Is there any development? They developed or they are developing? See, Adivasis and develop. When we are discussing about the forest, again consider the British colonial new forest laws and many laws after independence also. And second thing about the industrialization, and in the growth of industrialization, many tribal peoples, many Adivasis peoples switched off from that places. So, development of empires is also the main reason behind the Adivasis switching off. See, metals, ores like iron, copper and gold, and silver, coal and diamonds. All these are valuable, and invaluable timber also. When the important discussion of timber here, we will discuss and remember the portion in our chapter reading session of the history also. The forest peoples, officials, British officials only allowed the tribal peoples in a condition, a patch of land allowed to them in the case when they will consider the timbers from forest through the incoming areas or the industrial portions. So most medicinal herbs are also there, and animal products, it means wax, lax, honey we are using, wax we are using, lac we are using in wearing our ornaments, and animals themselves, it means elephants, the ministry of imperial armies, all came from the forest. So from the forest we get a lot of things, matters as well as animal products as well as forest products, we all are getting all these things from the forest. So what's important in this one? The two images of tribal communities in their traditional costumes are often the only ways in which Adivasi communities are represented. Yes, when we are discussing, when we search in TVs and etc., then we see that most of the Adivasis people had the something different costumes, and with the enjoyment, see, they always dance at any time, and they realize their own naturality far behind from the mind of all of us. They believe in naturality, and they believe their customs, traditions and cultures also, and that's why they enjoyed the dancing portion and something different colorful portions, costumes them. This then led us to think of them as being exotic and backward. So this one is the example of exotic, students. This one is the example of exotic? No, not at all. They are enjoying, they are in a firm position that they wear their own dress, their own costume. So this one is not the term of exotic and backward. At present also, when we are discussing about the situations, it's okay. Some comes at the society level as Dadu and his family, they switched off from the Odisha to Delhi in search of employment, in search of livelihood, in search of land, house, etc. Okay. So when we are considering about the conditions of Adivasis, how we relate Adivasis to forest, lot of discussions we had already done, lot of things we had already shared with you. Here also we are discussing that forest covered the major part of our country till the 19th century. When we are discussing about the century's position, then most of the forests are covered up to the 19th century. Adivasis had a deep knowledge of access to as well as control over most of these vast tracts, at least till the middle of the 19th century. Yes, Adivasis had a pure knowledge about the herbs, about the shrubs, about the different things checked out from the forest. So they had that much of knowledge. Often empires heavily depended on Adivasis for the crucial access to forest resources. You know about the incoming of the economic conditions, the businessmen, the money lenders, the traders, they totally switched off to forest, directly contacted to the Adivasis people for their own benefit. As the middlers, they gained a lot of benefit. Same here when we are discussing about the situations of the empires. Empires also depended on Adivasis for the forest resources. Just discussed about lot of resources of forest. But what's the present position of these people and the present India? See, situation is not the same today. Many reasons are behind it. Why situations is not the same today? First one, Adivasis. When we are considering about Adivasis, then marginal and powerless communities are there. When we are discussing about the marginal and powerless communities, then see, pre-colonial word is there. When we are discussing about pre-colonial word, it means what's the position here? Hunter-gatherers and nomads, and lived by shifting agriculture and also cultivating in one place. See, the costumes these are wearing, when the costumes are wearing, it means that naturality is there. Not only they are representing themselves with the ornaments. See, many ornaments are prepared from the woods. As forest availability, many ornaments are discussing from the lakes, as we are wearing this one. So hunter gatherers are there, nomads are there, and many shifting agricultural. When we discussed about the tribal or Adivasis areas or forest, then these are tribal people switched off from the one place to the another place, because shifting agriculture is there, and when they cultivated the one place at a time, they enjoyed. After cultivation, they enjoyed their lives. When we are discussing about in past 200 years, what's the situation? Lots of economic changes are there, forest policies and political force applied by the state and private industry. It means lots of industrialization is there, lots of pressure of political approaches are there. Economic changes also affected the lives of the Adivasis, and that's why they migrate from one place to the another place, or switched off from one place to the another place. Workers in plantation, yes, they switched off for the plantation in Assam, at construction sites and industries also, because they lost their livelihood, they lost their jobs. So in search of the livelihood and jobs, they switched off, they migrated from one place to the another place, maybe for the plantation purpose, maybe for the industries purpose, maybe at construction places also. At present also, you students in cities, in urban areas also, you see that lots of tribal peoples are there who are digging wells and who are doing lots of works, making roads and other things in the urban areas. Again we have one more thing here, development and problems faced by the tribals. It's okay, development is needed by the any country for the facing of the progress. So what's the relation of the development with the tribal peoples? What tribal people faced, how much problems they are facing? Forest lands have been cleared for timber. Yes, we had discussed that for the purpose of the timber, lot of forest lands have been cleared, and to get land for agriculture and industries for the purpose of the development of our India or any country, students, the main problems faced by the tribal peoples, because for the purpose of the land they want to capture, they want to take, and in place of that one agricultural and industrialization is the development. But what's the condition of the tribal peoples, what's the conditions of the Adivasis? They lost their own identity from that place. See, when we are discussing about the industrialization here, we know that industrializations are necessary for the economic conditions of any country. But how the people suffered, how the Adivasis suffered, how they faced a lots of problem is the main thing here. When we are considering about the agriculture, student, see, in agriculture what's the condition they faced? They forced to leave land, forest area are being cleared off. That's the main reason they switched off from the forest, because the government as well as the contractors needs the clear cut land, and that's why they forced to switch off from that area. Huge tracts of land have gone under the water of dams. See, when we are getting progress by the dams, by the water facilities, then what's the situation of the people who already had their own lands, on houses, on agricultural parts there? Water of dams also tracts their lands, and leading to displacement is the main reason that they switched off from that special place. And when we are discussing about industries, student, see, mining is there, and for the purpose of mining, for the purpose of taking ores, metals, etc., powerful forces have often colluded to take over tribal lands. much of the time the land is taken away forcefully. They are taking, and procedures or the agreements they had, they are not totally following that thing. More than 50% of the person displaced due to mines and mining projects are tribal people. So when we are considering about the conditions of the tribal people, see what's the main harassing time they are bearing. When we are considering about the northeast position, northeast, their land remain highly militarized, because most of the land was captured by the industrialists, most of the land was captured by the forest peoples, governments or the contractors. Again, development and problems faced by the tribals. One more special thing is also here. Literally, when we are considering about the developments, about the conservation of the forest, about the conservation of the animals also, India has 101 national parks covering 40,564 square kilometer and 543 wildlife sanctuaries also we have that cover the land 1,19,776 square kilometer. So all of these lands are not of the government. These lands, it's okay, taken by the government, taken by the private authorities. By whom? By the peoples who lived there. So they had to evict the place, or they will be termed as encroachers. That's the main thing why Adivasis left forests. Losing their lands and access to the forest means that tribals lost their main sources of livelihood and food. Because of all these situations, because of all these conditions faced by the tribal peoples, they switched off from that in search of livelihood, in search of the food, because these are the necessity things in the lives of the people. They migrated to cities in search of works also. When we discussed about the switching off in history portion, also in geography we discussed about the agriculture and industrialization. On that time also we discussed about Adivasis, we discussed about the tribal peoples. So they are employed for very low wages in local industries or at building or construction sites. When we are discussing about this one, especially when we are considering about the lives of the servants in urban areas, many people belongs from Nepal, Bihar, Assam, etc. What we pay them? At a very low wages we allowed them to work at home, we allowed them for the local industries or for the purpose of the building or construction sites. So not only the Nepalis, Biharis and other peoples, we are not considering the special state here, where we are considering the situations of the peoples, why they switched off in search of food, in search of their livelihood. And when we are considering about the livelihood, then local industries, buildings and construction sites are the main places where they found their work. We had a lot more things about the discussion of Adivasis. We will continue our chapter in our next part. Stay with us. Have a nice day.